Hello. I'm a little short for this camera. I wanted to come back on and point out some mistakes that I made in the earlier videos. My attacks they kept me isolated and unaware that there were other people that this was happening to. I was completely isolated from everybody. I'm going to go into some of the techniques that they used to isolate me, but one thing that I want to get off right off the get-go is that my attacks, everybody's attacks, probably vary in different ways. And if it is some kind of a human experiment, that would make sense. They want to test people in different ways on different things. I'm not so sure that's what it is. But I was attacked in such a way that I wasn't aware of what was going on. So it put me in a more vulnerable position. And because of that, we were able to make things like I'm dead seem completely believable to me. And I was attacked by, I misspoke earlier also when I said thousands of people. It was probably more like tens of thousands of people who were actively involved in the stalking. I understand that there's a lot of social engineering, that some people had just been like turned against me. I'm not talking about those kind of people. I'm talking about people that knew what was going on with me. There's a lot of people involved in this. And I also think that there's actually a lot of TIs out there that could be like me. In fact, I'm certain of it, that there's probably a lot of people that are being targeted this way and either afraid to come forward or don't know, like I didn't, because they were able to keep me in the dark not just for months but for years. Also, I interviewed another TI last night. I went over to his place and talked to him. Found a guy, and he shed a lot of new lights on things for me. He still is getting a lot of voice to skull, and I'd forgotten how effectively they distract you when you're trying to talk. They don't use that weapon on me as much, even though I still have my moments, obviously. But he had a very difficult time conveying his story over, and I went through that. It was almost impossible. First of all, with them screaming at you and they scream at you so you can't really hear people. You can't really hear what people, or at least I couldn't. And it was very difficult to form sentences because they're constantly talking, and they distract you. In conversations. They trip up your train of thought. You'll have what you want to say in your mind, and then when you go to speak it, your mouth just won't work. Probably some hypnotism involved in that too. In fact, I took a moment to hypnotize myself here right before, to start breaking those kind of thought patterns that they put into my head, and it convinced me that I'm not a good speaker. I would advise you do the same. Simply learn self-hypnosis. Start working on yourself. It's really pretty simple. Tell yourself, that I can speak, I won't be interrupted, that kind of stuff. These kind of affirmations will help you. A reason why I bring up that my situation was special is not to make myself look to be more of a martyr. The reason why I bring this up is because I mentioned in one video that I tried to kill myself and that they'll get to you, and I don't want to leave you thinking that that's what's going to happen to you. If you're aware of other TIs, that gives you an edge that I didn't have. Also, if you're watching this video, you have an edge that I didn't have. And this information can be used to keep you sane. Whereas I was driven completely insane by these people. They drove me completely insane. I mean, the fact the I'm dead stuff was completely believable, and it was hard to stay in reality in my position. Well, if you're, are aware of more about the situation, the more you know about the situation, the easier it is to stay in reality, and that's very important. Whatever your version of reality might happen to be. But if you're targeted, it's probably really bad, but at least you're not out there in their dream worlds, in their nightmare worlds. So, it can be overcome, but knowledge is very important with this. The more knowledge you have, the better. And I want to let both TIs and non-TIs know that this really needs to become a household word, TI, and these kind of attacks. If people are aware that this stuff is going on, it's going to be much more difficult for them to do it. People will be more apt to believe people when they come to them and tell them, especially if they're credible. A lot of the TIs unfortunately aren't able to speak because of the way that their attacks are. They distract you, they probably hypnotize you, and they probably do mind control all at the same time to ensure that they're not discovered. And so it's very hard to form sentences when somebody is just in your mind and talking to you while you're trying to talk. They'll interrupt your train of thought, and they'll get you talking. They'll say something and you'll start saying what they're saying. It's very difficult to keep it all straight when you have extra voices in your head, because you tend to follow what they're saying. It's kind of a habit. But and meditation and yoga is a very powerful tool. I did use meditation. Another misspeak that I had is meditation did actually help quite a bit in a lot of different areas. But in my case, it by itself wouldn't have been enough. It took actually physically sitting down and doing the procedure of hypnosis and meditation and natural cures. Valerian, would like to go into for a moment. Valerian is actually deserves a little bit more time than I gave it on the last video. Valerian is a natural herb that doesn't have all the side effects that like alcohol or downers and all that, and painkillers and all that other stuff has. It's a natural herb, but it's very strong, and it will put you to sleep, and it will take the edge off, and it will calm you down when you're being hit by, when your nerves are on edge from these attacks. It's very, very useful, and I highly advise it. It smells really bad, but you can cover up the smell with spearmint, and peppermint have a very strong odor. And if you go down to a health food store, you can buy this stuff fresh. You can buy it in powder, and you can mix it up all together, and you can cover up. And fresh spearmint is extremely. And I like the taste of valerian actually myself. Over the years, I've grown quite fond of it. But you can add honey to it and whatever. I strongly advise that you look into it. I drank it for 5 years with no visible side effects, no pain, nothing. Now I don't have to drink it as often as I used to. It's not like I'm hooked on it or anything. I'll go weeks now without drinking it. But in the beginning, it was very useful to helping me get through it. Meditation is also very useful, and I think probably somebody like the Dalai Lama or somebody like that probably maybe could overcome these kind of voices and not be pushed to insanity. I wasn't at that level, but I was at a pretty high level. So when it comes to yoga, I'm not, maybe I hate to rate myself, but I was probably middle ground, maybe even a little bit higher. So if you are going to use prayer and meditation as a weapon against these things, you better make sure you're damn good at it. I just want to leave it at that. Practice makes perfect in that area. I also wanted to mention some things that I forgot. It's important that I want to get this on record that I have been physically assaulted on a lot of cases too. Not only have I had knives pulled on me, but I've been jumped many times. I've had people attack me physically. I've been beat up. I've been put in the hospital. I had a whole gang attack me at one point. A whole gang surrounded me and attacked me. I've been gang beat up. I've got a probably a fractured hip. I've hypnotized myself to ignore the pain so I could go to work on this fractured hip, because at the time I just didn't trust doctors. I figured they're just going to mess up my hip and more, because I went to hospitals and they just